Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. My name is Hannah Zuberi. I am the head of the Justice for All DC office, and I welcome you today to this most important conversation and discussion between two of our elders, our mentors, people that we learn from, and thank you both for being here. I'm going to first introduce Imam Abdul Malik Mujahid, who is the founding chairman of Sound Vision Foundation. He's the leading producer of educational content on Islam and Muslims. He's also the executive producer of Muslim Network TV, formerly a Radio Islam talk show host in Chicago, and Adam's World series for children. Imam Mujahid has been selected 7 times since 2011 as one of the 500 most influential Muslims in the world. The list is developed in cooperation with the Georgetown University in the United States. He has built many alliances and coalitions amongst Muslims as well as non-Muslims. Imam Mujahid serves as the chair of Burma Task Force, Save Uyghur, Save India Project. Those are all projects of Justice for All, which is a Muslim human rights organization. He's the chair emeritus of the Council for, actually the chair emeritus of the Parliament of the World Religions, the premier interfaith organization in the world. He's also the former chairperson of the Council of I welcome Imam Mujahid to our session.
Assalamu alaikum. Thank you so much, Hina, and thank you so much for Professor Amina Mcloud, the Dean. I would just take a couple of minutes before we hear Professor Amina Mcloud, the Dean. People in the Muslim community are concerned about violence. Everyone is concerned about violence. Actually, the whole movement is against violence because a person was murdered, and in the long list in 2019, 1,000 people have been murdered just like that. Little bit of a different format. So this movement is a peace and justice movement against the violence. But unfortunately, they are met by the same people with violence, and some of them some extremists in some case. CNN has a story about how the right-wing extremists masquerading as protesters have been talking about violence, and President Trump's son tweeted it to millions of his people. So this is confusing. So we are talking about the movement of peace and justice. So I would say we cannot be a good Muslim until we feel others' humanity right in our hearts. We must also participate because our community is impacted directly. About 25% of all Muslims in America are African Americans. They suffer twice for being Black and for being Muslims. And we must stand with those who stand with us. When Muslim ban happened and Islamophobia and all that, all Black caucus in the Congress came together hand in hand with Keith Ellison to stand with the Muslim community. So, and we also have a responsibility to participate because this is the prophetic duty. God Almighty has told us in the Quran that he sent all the prophets لِيَقُومَ النَّاسُ بِالْقِسْطِ, so help people stand and establish al-qist, which translate literally, if you pick up dictionary, justice, equity, and fairness. And in the last sermon of the prophet, he asked Muslim, did I perform my duty? When they say, yes, Ya Rasulullah, he made Allah witness by saying 3 times. And then he said, فَلْيُبَلِّغِ الشَّاهِدَ الْغَائِبِ. Then he took that prophetic assignment, which were all prophets were sent with that same mission. And he said, now it is your duty. And that's why when Muslims go on Hajj, they say, Labbaik, Allahumma Labbaik. Here I am, O Lord, here I am, Ya Allah, at your service, Ya Allah. What is that service? What is that mission? Mission of justice. So we need to peacefully participate in this mission. It has built a huge movement, and this is not the time to stop. And I will have some ideas as well, but I like to just at this moment have Professor Amina Mcloud Dean speak, because she has been in the trenches of the movement. She's a medical doctor by her education. Then she switched to Islamic studies and became PhD and a professor. And she has been a major contributor to knowledge about Islam and Muslims in America. And I had particularly requested her to focus on the narrative, which media is just focused on some people looting and hurting and things like that, instead of focusing on the violence which initially started this campaign. It's about that violence, violence by police, which continuously is hurting. And now the same violence is being used to stop people by enjoying their right of freedom of speech. So Professor Amina Mcloud has been among the people who were initial host of Radio Islam, and now she is going to be a host for Muslim Network Television. And please welcome Professor Amina Mcloud.
Assalamu alaikum. Let me I'd like to introduce Professor Amina Mcloud. She is the Professor of Religious Studies and Director of Islamic World Studies Program at DePaul University in Chicago. Her areas of expertise include Islam in America, Muslim women, Islamic studies, and the history, geography, politics, religion, and philosophy of Islam. She's also the author and co-author of several books, including African American Islam, Questions of Faith, Transnational Muslims in American Society, and An Introduction of Islam in the 21st Century. Professor Mcloud is also the editor-in-chief of the Journal of Islamic Law and Culture, and a member of the Board of Advisors of the Institute for Social Policy and Understanding.
Thank you. Assalamu alaikum for that introduction. Well, I have several things as I've been talking to the 20-something and 30-something-year-olders, and then the older folk who are trying to figure out a way to counter the social media misinformation and the regular media's misinformation. And one of the ways I think that we can do that is for us in large numbers to get on social media and write. You know, when you see something that is incorrect, write. For the local media, our what is it, ABC, NBC, CBS, we can call, and all of those hosts have emails that are listed, and we can make an attempt not only to get them to interview Muslims in the community, but to counter the misinformation that is going out. There's a focus in the Muslim community and in other communities looking at the violence, that we've shifted in some respects away from the cause of the protest to the looting. And in all protests, if we think about across the world, there's always looting, right? And it's the people in the protest who have to quell the looting. And they can do that physically because they're right there by putting their hand, no, you're not going to do this here and now. And that too has been done before, and we have to encourage it. But we also have to encourage the media to keep a focus on what the protest is about. It is about, as Imam Malik said, a string, a few hundred years between lynching and hanging and dragging behind trucks and knees on folk windpipe to stop them from breathing. It is a culmination. It is one act that, so to speak, broke the camel's back. What we as Muslims can do, that list is fairly long. We have numbers of things that can be done. A truck left Chicago early this morning, 4 a.m. as a matter of fact, to go to Minneapolis to distribute food. Well, there were several trucks because we know shops have been burned. People no longer have access. Even some of the stores that were distributing masks and gloves have been damaged. So some of us are doing stuff, but many more of us need to do stuff. Here in Chicago and in other places, we need to, the younger of us, need to get out and assist with the cleanups, offer to help with the rebuilds, help feed folk, and try to draw attention to the fact that this is how we intend to participate in the struggle along with the protests. And then we have a lot of work to do inside of our own communities. So I will turn it back to Abdul Malik Mujahid, since this is a conversation.
So I would like to maybe share a screen to make a short presentation of things which we can do, and then we can get into the conversation. But what Professor Amina was saying, getting on social media, one of the things I would say is all these journalists are on Twitter. So whoever is doing the right thing, we need to appreciate and share. And whoever is buying into the wrong narrative or changing the topic, which is a peace and justice for George Floyd and people continuously. So we, and whoever is doing wrong, we just criticize them right there. And they're very sensitive to what Twitter is saying about that. So let me share something. Can I, Hannah, share my PowerPoint?
Yes, you should be able to.
Okay, it's giving me opportunity. So let me just share. So I will share a few things here. Number one is, you see this, this is National Alliance Against Racist and Political Repression. Justice for All is member of this coalition. And you see hijabis in there in the rally, because we were half of this major procession in Chicago, half of them were Muslims, including me and my children and my grandchildren, who were all part of that. So when it is revived, they have put that photo at the top of it. So one thing is, I already shared with you, this is our Islamic duty, but also it is about the solidarity. If some of you remember the Roots movie, Kantakunti was a Muslim who was the author's ancestor person, and that tradition of slavery, an effort for freedom continues. And this person had the peaceful protest, and you know what happened to the peaceful protest. And now that is a mega marches, which are all peaceful. Some people are trying to give a wrong narrative. That, violence is a part of it. Number one threat of violence, according to FBI, is the right-wing terrorism. And this is the island where our people were kept before they were shipped to America as a slave. And this is one of those fort and one of the guns of British or French or whichever is the party. And Usman Dan Fodio, rahimullah alayh, was the one. Until then, there were very few Muslim. He started a campaign against slavery. So Muslims are integral part of a campaign against slave trade. And because of that reason, now in Gambia and Ivory Coast and all those areas, majority of the people, 95% of the people are Muslim because of this struggle against slavery. So keeping an eye on the media is extremely critical. And I would say continue to use Twitter. But when you're using hashtag, not only hashtag George Floyd, hashtag Black Lives Matter, but also use a hashtag Muslim. So we know that everybody knows that Muslims are participant in that particular effort. And in each city, I know I saw some of the names, some of my colleagues and friends who have been marching with us and in the peace and justice struggle all around the world. I saw some of you there. Some of the imams are there. Some of the president of masjids are there. Some Shias and Sunni brothers and sisters are there. So look for local coalitions and local coalition, because this is a grassroots movement. There are national coalitions, and I will share some of those with you, but look for local coalitions and become part of that. This is the time to stand up and develop relationships. But remain bipartisan. There will be effort by Democrats. Well, I'm a Democrat with small d and capital D, don't take me wrong. But there will be effort by Democrats to make it, Republican versus, well, Lincoln was not a Democrat, he was a Republican. These things move around. Our issues are clear about peace and justice. What platform Republicans or that congressperson and senator has, what platform, whether they're Democrats and Republicans, tell us, what can you do to stop these type of systemic problem which we are facing? So remain in our conversation bipartisan, that is extremely important. And donate today to support the movement. Whenever something happens in the Muslim world, there are hundreds of relief organizations. They hit the ground running, and I'm receiving 30, 40, 50 emails for people asking for donate to help. Where are those organizations at this moment? Maybe some of them are doing, and I'm not seeing their emails and whatnot, but donate directly to the movement and people who are in the trenches. I'd like to share with you whom I'm donating to. I'm donating to NAARPR. It is National Alliance Against Racist and Political Repression. We came out of Ramadan. We don't have a whole lot of money, but maybe $5, $10 a month on the monthly basis. We need to sustain this movement. I'm also donating to National Bailout, National Bail Funds. In our rally this Saturday, we started by surrounding Cook County prison system. Why we surrounded that? Because there are people sitting there who cannot afford to have $200 bail. Our family system is broken, so they take the people, and I cried outside that prison as I was moving around the prison along with the protesters. There were tens of thousands of cars who were all in the cars, safe distance. Why did I cry? Because one of the first march for me in America was that my friend who was a PhD student, a former Greek Orthodox minister who didn't care for technology, he didn't even have a phone or TV. In the library of the University of Chicago, one girl says that he stole my TV, and that was enough. And then we marched and go to that prison system and all that. So National Bail Fund Network, right in Chicago right now, more than 1,500 people have been arrested. Some of them are innocent people walking by. A majority of them were extremely peaceful. Some may be the people who are trying to take law their hand. So National Bail Fund, just a little bit of money, but on the monthly basis. And then you have media. Mainstream media is relying on those media, independent journalists, authentic people. So this is their website. And I'm funding them a little bit on the monthly basis because they are amplifying voices. And because of their insight, then some of the people in the mainstream media are going in the right direction. Then there is a comprehensive research-based platform. What are the solutions for police brutality? And they have very methodological, and this is their website, joincampaign0.org. I'm donating them a little bit on the monthly basis. I know we came out of Ramadan, everybody is worried about income and the future. Then there are tens of thousands of people are being organized against M4BL.org, Movement for Black Lives. Little bit of money I'm donating to them. And then you have Black Youth Project. They're in many cities, but I like to support them in Washington, DC, New York City, and Chicago chapters. These kids are doing a tremendous job of organizing and putting themselves at risk of getting beaten up by the police. And they are very peaceful people. All these people, all these organizations I'm mentioning, they believe in peace. They're peaceful organizers. And Muslims who are worried about that, you participate, because it's pandemic, make a distance, properly participate, and then get maybe sometime in the car. For example, tomorrow we have a rally in the morning, in the afternoon, I'll be there. And I like those of you who are in Chicago, I like you to be there. Just stay in your car, use your hand to make a statement. A movement has begun to liberate America from racism, fear, hate, and anger. This has happened in the past and will continue to happen, God forbid. But this movement is a major movement, and several things have come together. 40 million people are jobless. Majority of them are minorities and poor people. And of course, there are other type of people as well. Second, majority of the people, of the 100,000 plus people who have died, majority of them, not majority, proportionally speaking, minorities, Blacks, Latinos in Chicago, 30% Black, 60% people who are dying are Black. So, and along with now this killing in Atlanta, here and in Atlanta, a Muslim mental health person also got murdered, which nobody is talking about during the same time period. So support these entities who are in the trenches, who are organized, and I have vetted them myself before I started putting my money. So peacefully participate in there. And start a dialogue with imams. Imams are tired of Ramadan, extra pressure on them. Talk to them one-on-one basis. Get Muslim leaders, involved. And we are developing a justice for all, a statement for all imams and Muslim leaders. Muslim leaders does not mean only the male Muslim leader of the mosque, but it means all the Muslim women leaders as well, to sign a statement of solidarity. It will be available, inshallah, by tomorrow. It has already been written, and I have given to a dear friend of mine to revise that. Next thing is what your masjid can do. You need to enter in a dialogue with masjid. I'm talking to masjid in Chicagoland area. I'm sending out messages and things like that. And I'm just picking up people here and there. So it requires a dialogue. If you are part of a masjid, enter into a dialogue with them. Ask them the coming Friday, have khutbah. Sound Vision has 3 khutbahs organized at 1 p.m. Eastern, 1 p.m. Central, 1 p.m. Pacific time. And we have all withdrawn because we are all either immigrant or connected. And we are asking African-American imam, give them a platform to major masjid so they speak. So enter into dialogue so people talk about this struggle. Connect this struggle is our struggle. It's not somebody else's struggle in which we are trying to be part of it. And then Juneteenth is coming. Some of you probably are aware of Juneteenth. It was a major milestone in the slavery movement because in Texas, nobody told slave that, slavery has ended. So it took them 2 years, and it was June 19th or any day in the June when they came to know and declared themselves to be free. So it's a milestone coming up. We need to have a major educational campaign prepared now. So join Anti-Racism Coalition in your city. If you cannot find one, please establish one. Call all the interfaith people. What is this, all the iftar and the hummus and the biryani all about in interfaith once in a year? Let's do some work. Call them and invite them to join a coalition which you develop. And if you don't have difficulty, give me a call or email me, malik@soundvision.com, and I will help you how to develop a coalition in your areas. And hundreds of protesters and non-participants are being imprisoned. There are Muslim lawyers associations, and there are physicians. Muslims are doing amazing job. Muslims are engaged in the movement. Don't take me wrong. Muslims are engaged. The Bangladeshi brother whose restaurant was close to precinct, he was part of the interfaith movement. He denied police to make a base in his restaurant. And in a state of that, he's a first generation immigrant. He gave protesters a medical team. So whenever people are getting injured, they will be brought into restaurant and they will be treated there. Eventually, his whole restaurant got burned down, not because people tried to burn, but fire moved from other side and engulfed that. And what he says, MashaAllah, his name is Ruhul Islam, meaning the spirit of Islam. And he's demonstrated that spirit. He says, building can be rebuilt, and I will rebuild those, but people's life cannot be brought back. So there are Muslims who are engaged in the campaign. So, but Muslims need to offer legal assistance. Muslims need to offer the medical assistance and identify local goals. You see, there are national goals, but then I was in NAACP meeting in Chicagoland area, and they identify very local goals. What are the goals which we can achieve right here in the Chicagoland? So it is important to focus what are the local goals, but there is another trap in our march yesterday, Saturday. Somebody who was with us, our supporter, on another separate car, have a banner, "All Lives Matter." I mean, you know, in principle, that sounds fine, but what it has been invented to deny the movement that Black lives, so unless Black lives matter, not all lives matter, because you're denying a part of people. So just don't fall in trap. A lot of Muslims have said, oh, Muslim life matter. Yes, it does. But right now there is a campaign. We need to be part of the campaign. We develop that solidarity, and this is the time to develop relationship. And these relationships will go long. You remember that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in a hadith Qudsi says that I was sick and you didn't come to see me. I was hungry and you didn't feed me. I was thirsty, you didn't provide water. You say, Ya Allah, how come I could do that? You say, well, if you have gone to the thirsty, if you have gone to the hungry, if you have gone to the sick person, you would have found me there. So this is the time to develop relationship. Influence is about relationship, and relationships are investment made into people. So every city find out who are the leaders and work with them, support them. Instead of we individually donating, maybe you need to pool your money in your masjid or your city, and together go and provide and ask them what is the need. So your success in life is largely dependent upon two factors: your ability to establish key relationships and your ability to influence and add value to relationship. What value which we are putting in this current campaign which is going on. And in Chicago, this rally in the University of Illinois, look at this. The kid, this person is a Muslim, and this is a Latina, and this is a Black student. Working with each other in relationship, they had 12,000 people over there against a hate rally which was about to take place. At this particular rally in Chicago, I was part of the Latino campaign, and because of that participation, I had opportunity to be in AFL-CIO office where chairman of the Democratic Party, Howard Dean, was there. And we started talking, and that's how we did, he organized a meeting of 25 Muslim leaders. And that's where we told him, thanks to our Radio Islam, where I have heard Keith Ellison, when he was struggling in the primary, that, hey, Muslim is running, why party is not supporting? I remember Dr. Howard Dean, chairman of the party, fought with me 4 or 5 minutes that Keith Ellison cannot be a Muslim. He probably wanted him to be Abdul Keith or Muhammad Keith or something like that. Finally, he supported. And then when I went to the Washington, D.C., he asked Keith Ellison to come from Capitol Hill to party office, and he said, Imam Mujahid, I present to you the first Muslim congressperson. So relationship matters, and this is the time to develop relationship, and that's the role Muhammad Ali played. I had relationship with him, work with him. Of course, this is a funny thing. He asked me, the last meeting actually was this. I was leaving his home. He called the photographer and asked me to punch on his nose. My, my hand was a little bit away from him. He brought it close to him. So relationship matter, and he helped us tremendously in our campaign on the Bosnia, which was the first campaign which we have. So strengthen relationship, identify people, pray for that person. Allah says it increases love when we pray for people. Subtle gifts, invite at home for dinner, or many things, and know their name, appreciation on Twitter, follow them, invest in that relationship. So my brothers and sisters, I consider this to be a tremendous opportunity for Muslim community. Instead of we standing alone, we need to stand together. Why we stand together? Because this is the mission of Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, who he assigned to us. And once we learn to stand with each other, I think we will be able to liberate America from fear, hate, and anger. Although Justice for All works on international human rights causes, but we will not be able to do that properly unless we have local coalition, local relationship, and people standing with us. Thank you so much, Amina. I didn't mention to you that I will have a presentation, but the last minute after talking to you, I developed that. Now I need to figure out how to stop sharing. Did I stop sharing now?
I think I would like to add that we need to have some intra-community relationship building. It is easy to not work on ourselves and to go out to do something as if all is fine at home. And everything is not fine at home, which is why so many of us haven't figured out what we can do. But in talking to, I guess they're 2 generations younger than me because they're the age of my grandkids, they were concerned.
Your generation, then my generation, then Hina generation, right?
No, well, we're young, really, it's just a minor point. They were talking about concerns about a fear that it will pass without us having done something substantial. 1. 2, they were genuinely afraid, having never experienced anything like this. And their impetus was to run and join a demonstration, being totally unprepared for the size of the crowds, the anger of the crowds, and all of those things. And then being so afraid that they didn't go, but there's nothing else to do, and there's plenty else to do. I'm going to try, my program on Muslim Network TV is Critical Talk, and I'm going to try at least a couple of times during the week to have various young people on, Muslim and non, to discuss what you can do if you can't go, what you can also do if you can go. And I think for the older folks who have change for a dollar, joining organizations which you vet, Imam Malik has vetted some of them for us, is very, very important. But we have to overlook the side violence and understand, and we can only do this in small groups, where the anger is coming from. How does the anger get to a point of boiling over? We've seen this in many countries where Muslims are around the world. And I think it's time for us to connect the dots. Mm-hmm. We have to understand oppression in large terms, not losing our focus on the current events up under us. But now tonight, young people are talking about, okay, I'm ready to die. I'm tired. They're going to shoot me at some point in time anyway. So we have to take all of our resources to bear. We have to feed people. We have to do like the Somali brother and open places where we can treat people, feed them, do what's necessary. And hopefully at Muslim Network TV, we will have an array of mental health people on to talk about some of the angst, because you've got to quell your anger before you can move to anything. And we have to go beyond the immediate. We have to deal with the immediate, but we have to think about the after. And I see a whole bunch of you, with questions. There's a few of you, but a bunch of people listening. And I hope that our audience has questions, issues, lots of stuff that we can do. I think it is insufficient. I found it very disturbing that last Friday, some imams decided they did not want to talk about the current issues at all and steered their community away from the guidance they could have provided from the Quran and Hadith on what we could be doing. And young people were very, very frustrated by that. And I think those imams, alhamdulillah, have backed up and said, you know, maybe I too was scared. And so what I need to do is regroup. And I think in the first part of Imam Malik's talk, he gave them some fodder from which they can issue more appropriate guidance. And once they calm down, then they can see stuff. But there is an expectation in this country that Muslims stand for justice. From slavery time through Malcolm X, many people transition to Islam because Muslims stand for justice. They are not passive. They are not all running to the street. They're doing stuff at the level at which they can contribute, and that's important.
Sister Dr. Amina, I have a question. So violence, when we're looking, and a lot of people are talking about violence, and you both reiterated that this focus has shifted from the violence that is perpetuated on Black bodies and is now being focused on property and all of that.
Right.
So one of the things that people have asked is, don't you think, or do you think that the state would have perpetuated this violence anyways, even if there hadn't been any property damage? Because the amount, how quickly everything was activated, you know, we couldn't find PPE for hospitals for months, yet, you know, the whole National Guard's being called in, the police is militarized. So that is a question that people have, that, you know,
well, I think we would be remiss if we didn't think about the fact that the angst from being literally sheltered for 2.5 months, depending upon where you are, is conflated with one more killing. You know, Breonna Taylor was in her apartment. The police had no business with her. And this is an EMT who's out serving the people, but they shot through her door and killed her, you know, in a horrible fashion. I think that we have to remember that the communities are well aware of the fact that COVID affected minority communities severely. They're aware that those communities don't have hospitals or clinics who are able to deal with it. And then when some, I don't know if you go on the website, theroot.com. Theroot.com was steadily documenting from families of Black folk who showed up at emergency rooms with serious cases of COVID and were not admitted. When the center here, what is it called? The huge entertainment center. Oh, shows you I don't go. Anyway, they opened up these huge arenas. But for many in the minority communities, traveling away from family, where family can't go to be treated, also produce stress. So when you roll that all together, you have people who've been deprived. They see many of those businesses as living off them. You know, the owner of the store, Palestinian Muslim American, who has been running his store, he tells us on the media through a couple of generations, had a protocol. If people come in, they do this, they do that, they do the other, call the police. And all the people surrounding his store are African American. Members of Imam are going up there, I think it's Thursday, to look at how to help communities, as Imam Malik was saying, form relationships. You can't just come into a community, earn you and your family's livelihood off of the community and not expect any ants. Mm-hmm. On the other hand, African Americans don't brook any respect when their behavior is off the chain. Do you understand what I'm saying? And it is for those in those protests to pull them, and the Latinos, the African American, and white kids back into order, okay? Because when your behavior is bad, people lose confidence in what it is you're protesting. And it doesn't mean that you're supposed to sing Kumbaya and march and do those kinds of things. But the violence that's coming out, you have to understand how the Black community understands the many people who have made money off of them. That has not benefited the Black community. Not an excuse for it, just some comprehension of the dynamics.
Thank you so much. So there's a question from somebody. Please give mention to Tatiana Jefferson in Texas, who was murdered through her window when neighbors was asked for a wellness check. And then there's another question about what issues do you see as local racism-based issues that need to be addressed in the Chicago area?
You want to take Amina, or should I take it?
Well, you take it first and I'll go after you.
That's been my lifelong struggle. You come after.
Okay, don't complain, dude. Just get on with it.
All right. So, in Chicago, about 5 years ago, under the leadership of the Council of Islamic Organization, Greater Chicago, and Justice for All developed the relationship, we had a huge march that Chicago police need to have citizens' oversight. There is a law in the city council which need to be passed, and half of the people there were Muslims marching on that issue. And those are the people who are leading that campaign, are the one who have developed this new alliance, which we are, Justice for All is a part of it. Mm-hmm. So the local mayor, she is Black, she is a progressive, but one part of her, which is not much known, is she's part of the police type of elite among Blacks. So she promised that she will support that law, and it has been a year she hasn't done anything about that particular law. So politicians are politicians. That's why I'm saying don't take it because a person is a Black or a white or a Republican or a Democrat. What is the demand? So demand is, in Chicago, where we had about 10 years ago, Purge campaign. Remember the Burge, who was a police officer, torturing Blacks and forcing them to confess to things which they are not doing? We're part of that campaign. And that campaign moved forward and became a campaign. So there is a coalition of police accountability in Chicago. It has been there for 10, 15 years. And this particular coalition, which came into being, is specifically to pass that law that the police should be under a powerful citizens oversight. So people cannot just hide when what you call blue solidarity. What did you say?
Yeah, that's what it's called.
a blue wall or something. So there is a citizens wall, which is ensuring that nobody hides behind files while they have the record, like the Birch, Lieutenant Birch has, who was torturing people in his thing. So in Chicago, this is the main thing. But of course, there's a whole list of things which, if you contact NAACP, they have a whole list of things. When you're listening to them, they are not talking about how to strengthen the movement. They're just talking about what are the things which need to be done. Now, what things need to be done? That list need to be taken and put on the effort. So we have a campaign which is ensuring that that those demands are met.
I agree wholeheartedly, and I think that in the Citizen Oversight Committee, we must make sure that there are young Muslims there who are lawyers, who are interested in politics and in police work. We are not there, and we need to be there, because that Citizen Oversight Committee should represent the city. And many of our masajid are in the city. We have a number which are out of the city and in other jurisdictions, but Muslims should be on those oversight committees also.
And follow up with them, right? Because a lot of them don't issue reports even though the committees exist.
Right, exactly.
So that is something perhaps we can let the audience know is what are citizen oversight committees for those audience members that might not know.
They come out of the mayor's office and they're pulled together. They're usually chosen, unfortunately, to put together, and they're supposed to hear cases. One of the things that came up is that when you have cases, and what the city of Chicago does, along with other major cities, is rather than bring the officers to task, arrest them, etc., what it does is it pays off families. So then when you hear that the city of Chicago has all of these deficits, it's because we're forever paying for police misconduct to the tune of hundreds of millions of dollars every year.
So
Hannah, maybe you need to tell people they can type questions in chat.
We do have some questions in chat that I'm going to be asking it. So one of the questions is very pertinent to is the training of these officers, and the fact that a lot of police departments in the United States are trained specifically in Israel, and that connection that is made between the type of tactics that are used and increasingly militarized police. So if you guys could talk a little bit about that.
Well, I think that that is something that we could appeal to. We still have a largely Democratic Congress. Our police should not be trained by an outside force, okay? Because the tactics used in Israel against Palestinians, I mean, my God, why would you want to bring that here? And it's here. And it is informing some of the excess that we see. And one other way we can do is we can talk about it. So when I call you from Muslim Network TV to talk about it, don't tell me you don't have time.
Imam Mujahid, there's a question about, do you think, so someone's asking, do you think some of this is being, the looting and rioting is being provoked to influence the November presidential election and the congressional elections? What guidance can you provide so we may maintain focus on justice?
Well, one thing I like to share with you is that the looting and rioting is a part of a great American tradition. If your team wins, there is a looting and rioting. If your team loses, there is a rioting.
Looting and rioting.
So these things go on, unfortunately, part of the society we live in. So this is number one. Number two, it's an extremely peaceful movement. And in Minneapolis, when violence began, a peace movement documented following one person for 3 blocks who was going around with camouflage. His face cannot be seen. His skin shows that he's a white person, and trying to almost be invisible, breaking the glasses with his hammer in his hand. They keep asking him why you're doing that, why they're doing it, and they followed him. Same thing I mentioned in CNN has a story that a tweet was being used. Now that Twitter account, Twitter found out, is a right-wing white supremacist. And by that time, it was already retweeted by the son of the president that look at what these people are doing. So yes, there is a possibility of different people trying to take advantage of it, criminal element, right-wing extremists, left-wing extremists. But we're talking about a movement for peace. And there are peaceful ways to participate in this justice movement. And that's what our focus is. But yeah, there is definitely a full possibility of people trying to take advantage of it because the elections are around the corner. And that's why I'm saying we need to be very clear on what we are asking. Our goals should be clear, short term and the long term. And we don't get into the business of Republican and Democrat when it comes to a particular congressperson and senator. We need to clearly ask them, tell me, this is going on in this country. 40 million people are jobless. In New York, the largest city in the richest country in the world, 25% people do not have enough to eat. And city and other people are trying to feed. 1 in 4 person need food. And then who are these people? Mostly poor people. And majority of the minorities getting killed out of 100,000 people, if not by police, by through the cabbage. So all these questions, what plan do you have? That's how I like to know from these people one-on-one basis. And you know, congresspersons are not available, but they need vote. So maybe you should ask, okay, I'm organizing a Zoom meeting, Zoom town hall. I want you to come and decide these questions that we're going to ask this question with them.
No, I think that is absolutely important. Sound Vision, CIOGC, CARE, all of our groups have been involved in urging us as a religious community to fill out the census. Mm-hmm. That's important regarding what you get in your neighborhood. But we have to here figure out how to, and a very small percentage of folks, despite all the efforts, have filled out the census thing. It's online. It takes a few minutes. Step one. Step two is prepare yourself to vote. Get rid of people who do nothing. Get rid of people who have no platform. Muslims have in recent years, and I'm talking about voting years, invited people running from office to their community, and they've been smiling at them. They don't have a plan to demand that those people coming implement or to get their opinions on them, to make rational choices about who it is you're going to vote for. You just can't vote for somebody because they are brave enough to come to the Muslim community. You know, I mean, that's an absurdity. And I think that it is important that we talk about police reform in a number of ways, and that when we say minority, we've got to think bigger. Muslims may be a religious minority here in this space, but we're a world majority, okay? And Muslims all over the planet are hearing what's happening in the United States and want to see what Muslims here do. Ethnic minorities in the United States aren't poor because they do nothing. There's systemic things in place to prevent them from doing something. from hiring in corporations to redlining, determining where you can live, what resources you can access. So I think those things are also fueling the anger.
Mhm. Exactly. Exactly. So one of the actions that, and we'll have this live on Justice for All tomorrow, is we're asking for federal statutory reforms, which, you know, the use of force, and this was in the part of our statement that we issued the day after George Floyd was killed. I believe we were one of the first Muslim organizations to send a statement out with action alert, like proper action on it. This would basically require a federal standard that use of force be reserved for only when necessary, prohibit all maneuvers that restrict the flow of blood, oxygen, prohibit racial profiling, and require robust data collection on police community encounters and law enforcement activities. So, you know, prohibit the use of no-knock warrants, eliminate federal programs. So these are part of, and as Imam Mujahid had talked about before, from Campaign Zero, this is documental, web research. These are steps that can be taken immediately. That if our Congress people and Senate is serious about tackling this violence, it needs to happen now when everybody's focus is on it. So one of the questions that is, so inshallah, look for that tomorrow. One of the questions that that someone had here was very pertinent to something that both of you had said about in, you know, the racism in the Muslim community and how that affects decisions, structural decisions, institutional decisions, decisions that are made to call cops on kids being rowdy in the parking lot. And a lot of times those are Black kids, and that could put their life in danger. And some of those structural changes that need to occur in Muslim businesses, Muslim communities, you know, mosques. And then, yes, someone has reminded that charity begins at home, and that this is our brethren in faith and creation need help just as much as others. Someone else had also said that the man who called the police on George Floyd was a Muslim. What can we do about racism and discrimination that's still plaguing the Muslim community today? There are many who do not respond to what happened for days until they no longer have a choice. Inside the Muslim community and our mosque, people of color are seen as less and called derogatory names, slurs, shunned from communities, and treated less of. And this is a, you know, this is a really, really sensitive topic. I know for me personally, I come from a mosque where a young woman took her own life because she was bullied because of her race. You know, it's real. And so what are both of yours, Dr. Mcloud, I'd like to you go first, and then Imam Mujahid to answer you know, your thoughts.
Well, I think we have to recognize that people's Islamic understandings and their worldview, their cultural understandings are different. African Americans established Islam in America by being open and welcoming. Sometimes the hoodlums, we had to be forceful in making sure certain behaviors were permitted and other behaviors were not. People coming from Muslim cultures, which are homogenous, have a different understanding of Islam. They're not used to multiculturalism, even though they have immigrated here, nor are they used to who's in charge where, and the behaviors of people in other cultures, which you can act upon. You know, if, for example, and I forget, is he a bishop, Kubich, the Catholic bishop, in the alley behind that church, if some kids were acting out, Black, Latino, whatever, they have no problem going outside and said, not here. Okay? Down the street, perhaps, but not here. And I'm not calling the police on you or anything. I'm just telling you, this is a place where you have to be respectful first. And I'm going to enforce that. On the other hand, because there are cultural differences, many Muslims, not all, have not made an effort to insinuate themselves beyond what they think of will get them kudos in white society. White society knows exactly who you are. And if you think you're insinuating yourself, that's really a delusion. Okay? And it doesn't mean that you don't insinuate yourself there. It means that that is not the only place in which you have to insinuate yourself. You have to develop relationships among right-minded people across the board. I sometimes agree and other times disagree. Many in other communities who participate in interfaith dialogue are professional dialoguers. And when Muslims have, as Imam Malik said, we've got to learn to be the setters of the table. Invite people to come to us so that we set the agenda, not always following someone else's agenda. And we've got to engage those communities like the young man who you said had his face all painted up and you can't see. You know, you can't be afraid of those who wish to do you harm because it is, they read your fear. They can smell it in the air. And like after 2001 and in other places, people figure, well, these people, you know, they don't know how to respond to America's form of violence on itself. But American people know how to rise up against excessive violence overseas. They know how to do that. You know, we on college campuses wrote petitions, demanded that our universities divest because of South African apartheid. We rose up, some people, I don't know, burn themselves to death to start the conversation on the war in Vietnam. People know, and it does involve violence, how to make the government pay attention, okay? Not the only way. We have marched peacefully. Ask the people who marched with Dr. King. Did it change anything? Not really. And that's what the young people are seeing. My ancestors marched. Now it's time for something else. We've got to find the middle road between those two things because you can't, you can't waste your time trying to explain who you are to people committed to misunderstanding you, says Maya Angelou. It is important.
I would like to add that that at soundvision.com/racism, for last 20-25 years, we have a lot of material how to fight racism within the Muslim community. So the coming sermons, I think if you have 25-minute sermon time, I would say take 15 minutes for solidarity and how 10 minutes about solidarity, 5 minutes for reflection within the Muslim community, and then other 5-10 minutes what people can do about that. But focus must remain to strengthening the movement and encouraging people to participate. That should remain our focus. But we must not postpone the opportunity of education. Khutbah, Muslim audience is sitting there. So we talk about the solidarity, what you can do, and have a mirror to ourselves. Alhamdulillah, I mean, the community is a growing and a big community. Our kids are participating. They're moving forward, changing the paradigms and all of that. So soundvision.com/racism is focused on racism, and it has tons of articles, what your family can do, what your masjid can do. Actually, I wrote an article, 25 ways of our jihad against racism. And since the word jihad was in the subject heading, 500 people unsubscribed. Email list, jihad against hunger and jihad against racism was still not kosher for those people. Another thing I like to share is that if you are motivated with what Amina is saying, if you want to do something about it, I think if you go on justiceforall.org, justiceforall.org/volunteer, and you can volunteer for the current movement, and we will guide you. We will guide you what are the things which you can do in our city. I see somewhere in the chat box and a question, somebody is saying they want to develop a coalition. Maybe we will help you one-on-one basis, because it is in the interest of the Muslim community to learn, stand together, and continuously develop the relationship which can take us forward. So volunteer there, justiceforall.org/volunteer, and I have put it there on the in the chat box. I have somebody ask me, where are you donating? Tell us the links. So I put those links there. Somebody asked what Masjid can do. I put down whatever my notes were there, and justiceforall.org/volunteer is there. So we got about, I think, 20 minutes before we close. So if there are any other questions, we can.
Okay, so another question is, how should non-Black Muslims interact with police? For instance, what do you think of the statement being made to our community? It's time to call police and report anything out of ordinary and unusual. Not trying to scare anyone here, but we need to do our due diligence and keep our eyes and ears open and report anything unusual.
That was one tactic used against non-Black Muslim immigrants after 2001. If we saw that your beard was too long or you weren't wearing a kufi before, call the FBI, the CIA, the NSA.
I'm taking my kufi off.
We don't want to see your bald head. Anyway, we were asked to, if you see Muslims in the masjid acting suspiciously, call the police. To whomever sent that question, would you have us have really responded to that and call the police every time we saw something happening amongst immigrant Muslims? Thankfully, we didn't bite that apple, because many men and women would have been under even more forceful surveillance and in jail. Why would you want to do that against African Americans?
Exactly. And if I can step in here and tie this to the larger picture. So we worked on the Save We Were project, right? Save We Were campaign. If you look at the community over there, the society over there, people are used from the Uyghur community to police their own. And you think that people who are in the concentration camps, they're not Uyghurs actually monitoring other Uyghurs? That happens. This is what the state will do to divide a people. And so unless there's something, a danger to someone's life, or God forbid something, and there are many, many diffusing tactics that people can use there can be Muslim security guards. There are so many other tactics that Muslim communities can use to stay safe, to Sister Amina was talking about, the bishop being the person who was in charge, alternative tactics than to escalate situations and possibly get someone killed. Imam Mujahid, I'd like to.
I would say that Muslim community is mature and organized. I think if you're worried about something is suspicious, and suspicious thing can include a sort of an informer who are trying to incite somebody. These are all sort of things. So I think Imam and the Masjid leadership should be informed, and they should do shura. I would not encourage people to stay away from police and FBI. I gave a sermon about 2 weeks ago, and there were close to, several hundred threat to masjids. So we're gonna come and attack your masjid. What am I supposed to do? So I tried to contact CARE, nobody responded. I try here and there, and finally I decided that I'm going to call the civil right number in city of Chicago. They didn't respond. I called the Illinois number. They didn't respond. Finally, I called FBI, and they responded, and they were able to, trace those people and inform us. They assessed that they are out of town people, and the threat of attack on the masjid limited. So I would not completely discount. We pay taxes. These are our institution. Institution must be strengthened, but instead of every little kid jumping up and down, we need to have masjid leadership and organization, imam and the executive committee or the president. They make a qualified decision. This is the time we need to approach, and approach it organizationally. There is going to be strength in that. Instead of every kid is being encouraged to making a phone calls and things of this nature. So this is my opinion, which is slightly different from the blanket, practice. Of course, my position on the whole campaign in which 50% of all Muslim homes in New York were knocked by FBI, and they interviewed 700,000 Muslims post 9/11. And interesting enough, Mike Rollins, who was in charge of counterterrorism in Washington, D.C. office, he told me that we interviewed 700,000 people, and not a single interview yielded any information which could have prevented 9/11. So he thought Muslim community is a pretty clean community.
And that might be because they didn't have any. Mm-hmm. But I still maintain that the first choice with regard to Muslims is, I'll amend that. I'll add to it and say, to report it to someone in authority. I don't know that in an immediate situation that one can convene a shura and ask the imam to do X, Y, and Z, but to report it to someone in authority first. But I think that there is also a hesitancy, and I speak largely, the Black community was heavily consulted after 9/11. Our experience with the police said, you don't bite.
And also to remind everybody to, if you are going to be engaging with the FBI, to please do talk to your lawyer.
Yes,
indeed. Will be used against you. So
exactly.
Just FYI. So there's another question about training, how to use our cell phones to record what police is doing for anyone who chooses to go to a protest, hopefully with masks and gloves and with social distancing.
Hard at a protest, huh?
I have posted a link of ACLU website. You can download an app to document what police brutality and those things. So you can download an app and record. The strength of that recording is that it immediately goes to ACLU. So even police snatches your cell phone away, it is already documented. They have made a clever app, so it doesn't stay right there. It goes straight to them before it is snatched away.
Oh, let me add just one thing, connected, but not, well, maybe it is directly connected. You know that since the protests have begun, states and cities have closed down the courts because they're mostly downtown, which has impeded hearings on immigration, much to Trump's love. But, we need to keep an eye on everything around, and especially the stuff that's being hidden by us, keeping our focus on one thing. And we're still in it, in the height of the pandemic crisis, when we were shuttered at home, many bills were being offered that Muslims would be terrified of. Many other things were being done at the border. Some Muslims went to the border to document what's happening with immigrants being detained. We know that there's still bans and they're being extended. So we have to become a little multi-focused, keeping our eye on the current situation.
Now watch our show, Justice for All Now. We're going to be talking about DACA because DACA is going to be, the decision is in the Supreme Court.
Yeah.
So the border situation, we had a show about that as well. So I wanted, someone was asking, again, institutional reform in the Muslim community regarding to race relations between immigrants and Muslims. So, I mean, this is a recurring theme, and perhaps we can have a specific workshop on this for mosque leadership conducted by the two of you. That would be a request, because I do believe it's a deep topic. It needs a lot of focus. So if that is a request that we can make of the two of you, if you could. So inshallah, we just have a minute left, and as if there are any final questions, if not, you know, we have to realize anti-racism work is hard, lifelong work, as you've seen from both of our speakers. They've been doing this for decades. It's not just a few rants on social media and just going to a protest and taking a selfie. It takes a lot of work. It is structural. You know, we need to keep working on police accountability, abolishing private prisons, demanding, you know, the school to prison pipeline being dismantled. All of these are all part of this movement, and it can be done in a way that is, you know, working towards justice. And you know, there are a lot of strong figures within the Black and Black Muslim communities that lead initiatives. We need to show up and support their leadership. We need to be comfortable with taking their lead about issues because they are intimately familiar with those issues, just like Dr. Mcloud over here. So, so that's it from us, inshallah. You know, this is, you know, the time is now, in the words of W.E.B. Du Bois. Now is the time, not tomorrow, not some more convenient season, right? So inshallah, if we could end with a dua, inshallah.
Amina.
Last word, somebody asked the question, when will Muslim Network TV take up some of the issues and continuing conversations? We have Justice for All is a daily program that you can get on, you can text to, am I doing a commercial? We can text to Sound Visions. My program is Critical Talk, and we will address some of the issues. If you have suggestions for speakers and for conversations you would like any of us to have, please send them to malik@soundvision.com. And we will definitely sort and get to the ones we can get to.
Well, thank you so much.
Daily show.
MuslimNetwork.tv. I have put it in the chat box, MuslimNetwork.tv. You can find us there, or you can Galaxy 19 satellite, or we are on Amazon Fire TV, as well as Roku and a lot of Facebook pages and all that. But brothers and sisters, you know, one thing I'm surprised is that almost everybody who joined us about an hour and a half ago stayed with us. It shows your higher level of commitment to this particular cause. But please, this evening, sit down with the family and think through this. All the ideas which are out there, what is it which you can do? We need to continuously support and build the campaign which has begun. Don't be deterred by the violence. You don't have to participate in that. You need to remain peaceful, peacefully participate. You can participate through phone, through Twitter, through your car, or in physically if it is possible. Do that. Participation is important. Solidarity is important. And making dua is also important. So Amna, why don't you lead us in dua?
I'm sorry, you didn't hear me.
You can
But I
read it.
would ask everybody to bow their heads and quietly say the Al-Fatiha. And may Allah bless our efforts, keep us strong,
Amen.
and keep us mindful and persistent in our stand for justice.
Amen.
And may we come together again shortly.
Amen.
Sadaqallahu, I think.
Thank you so much.
Welcome.